Motivation for success can start with the smallest thing. Sometimes it begins the day your whole world feels like it just broke in half. Has anyone else ever built the drive to grow from the ashes of a failed marriage like I did? I still remember the day my marriage ended, because it was the same morning the layoff email landed in my inbox. The subject line was clinical. Workforce reduction. My name was listed like a line item. 2 hours later, Linda looked at me across our kitchen island and said she wanted out. No yelling. No thrown plates. Just a quiet sentence that folded our life in half. If you are over 45, if you are holding a pink slip in one hand and a custody calendar in the other, pull up a chair. I am not here to win an argument. I am here to tell you how losing my marriage forced me to build a life I did not know I had in me. In the first week, after Linda spoke those words, the house no longer felt like a home. I could hear the refrigerator hum, as if it were trying to keep my old life cold and fresh. I could hear my daughters whispering at the top of the stairs, trying to measure which parent needed their comfort more. My son called from Austin and asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was fine. I was not fine. I was a 56-year-old man reading severance paperwork with a pen that shook. There is a sentence people love to throw around when they stand on the shore of your wreckage. Everything happens for a reason. I'm not sure if that is true. What I know is this. Everything becomes useful when you decide to be responsible for it. Don't blame yourself. To be responsible. There is a difference so large it can save a life. A neighbor of mine, Colonel Harris, understood that difference. He is 78 now. He sits on his porch in a folding chair and waves at every dog that goes by. He volunteers at the Veterans Center and teaches young men the art of the second chance. He does not tell many stories from his wars, but he is generous with this one sentence. No one pays for your admission to life. You pay it yourself with how you handle what comes next. He said it to me the week I moved into the rental apartment down the hill from our old place. He said it the night the girls slept in their new room and asked if we could hang photos on the wall to stop the echo. He said it when I showed up at his porch with 2 cups of coffee and eyes that stung. No one pays your admission. Mark, you decide how to pay, and you decide what you buy with it. I started small. I woke up at 5:30 and walked the neighborhood before the sun made the asphalt shine. I made a list of skills I had let rust during the comfortable years. I rewrote my resume and discovered I had been using the same bullet points since 2014. I called 3 former colleagues and told them the truth. I am out of work. I am not out of value. Do you happen to know of anyone who could use some help on a project? The meeting between the mediator and Linda was civil. We talked through parenting time. We divided the furniture as if we were splitting a pie at Thanksgiving. I wanted to argue about a lamp. Then I laughed at myself. I was trying to hold on to an object because I was afraid to hold on to a feeling. We signed. We cried in separate cars. We promised our girls that the word family would not be taken from them. If you are listening to this and your chest is tight, breathe with me. Loss arrives like a stranger who knocks at your door and then walks straight to your kitchen. You can chase him around the house with a broom, or you can sit him down at the table and ask what he plans to teach you. Here is what mine taught me. Dignity is a daily practice, not a personality trait. You practice it when you answer a text from your ex without a jab. You practice it when you tell your children they do not have to pick sides. You practice it when you ask for help from people who watched you pretend you never needed any. If this is where you are, do not turn this off. You and I are going to take one step together. Not a miracle. Not a makeover. One honest step. The first honest step for me was admitting I had been a passenger in my own life. I had let routine drive. And routine does not care where you end up. I had outsourced hard conversations to the future. And the bill finally arrived. I signed up for a free career workshop at the community college near my apartment. The coach asked me to write 5 moments in the last 10 years when I had felt useful. Not rich. Not famous. Useful. I wrote about mentoring a young analyst who later became a department head. I wrote about building a dashboard for a clinic that cut billing errors in half. I wrote about a project where I convinced a director to try a pilot instead of drowning in slides. That became my compass. If an action didn't move someone forward, I crossed it off. I wanted every step to buy back a piece of the man I wanted to be. At home. I learned the rhythm of a smaller house, on Taco Tuesdays. I cooked with the girls even when I was tired. We ate at the kitchen table with laptops and job boards off to the side. We kept a glass jar for small wins, a callback, a good grade, of a peaceful night. On Sundays, we read them out loud and laughed when we saw how many there were. Linda and I became something between business partners and neighbors. I stopped trying to win the last argument of our marriage during the first minute of every custody handoff. When she asked for schedule changes, I said yes when I could and no when I couldn't, without defending myself like a lawyer. Boundaries felt awkward at first, but turned out to be the shape of respect. Money became the drumbeat of my week. I canceled subscriptions I could not defend. I rolled over my 401k and promised not to touch it unless the sky actually fell. I pulled my credit report and looked at it like a doctor reads a chart. Not as a verdict, but as a guide. One afternoon, I carried a box of notebooks to the thrift store and ran into Colonel Harris. He told me about a Thursday men's group at the Veterans Center. Not a place for speeches. Just a room where you can say you are scared without losing your voice. I went. The first night, I did not talk. I watched a retired firefighter describe the silence after his last call. I watched a teacher cry because he had never cried in front of anyone but his dog. When it was my turn, I said my marriage was over. My job was gone. And I did not know who I was without either to fix. A man across the circle nodded. "Welcome," he said. "You are not a problem to solve. You are a man to rebuild." From then on, I followed a routine that ran on discipline, not emotion. Walk at 5:30. Coffee. 90 minutes of job search or learning. I had breakfast with the girls on my days off. We did a 20-minute reset every night so that mornings wouldn't punish us for being tired. Work came back piece by piece. A colleague asked for help fixing a nonprofit's data mess. I charged fairly and delivered early. They told a friend. 2 weeks later, I had a calendar with blocks of work and a whiteboard with names that were not just bills. In every rebuild, there comes a moment when the scattered bricks begin to look like a wall. It is not a triumph. It is a relief. The quiet joy of stacking something straight after a season of crookedness. The court date came in late spring. The courtroom smelled like paper and burnt coffee. Linda wore a navy dress that made her look like the person we once imagined becoming together. We answered the judge with yes, Your Honor, and no, Your Honor. And the clerk stamped papers that turned private pain into public record. Outside, we stood a few feet apart. We were not enemies. We were two farmers dividing a field we had both forgotten to water. She asked if I was angry. I said I was sad, but not in a way that blamed her. She nodded. And for the first time in years, we stood in the same weather. I walked to my car and saw a voicemail from a hospital director. They wanted to expand the project I had just finished into a year-long contract. I laughed, then cried with my forehead on the steering wheel, not because the money solved everything, but because momentum is a kind of mercy. That night I brought home takeout, and we watched an old comedy. It was not a celebration. It was something better. Normal. The contract became a bridge to more work. I said no to a full-time job that would have traded my freedom for a title I did not need. I built a version of success that fits my life now. Enough money to be generous. Enough time to be present. Enough pride to stand tall without stepping on anyone. I planted a small garden in the townhouse yard. Tomatoes that punished impatience. Peppers that forgave me for forgetting once. A grill that turned Saturdays into gatherings. The girls brought friends over. And laughter returned to the house. Linda called sometimes when life pressed too hard. I answered when I could be kind and said no when I could not. Our kids saw us fail at marriage but succeed at decency. I would never have chosen that lesson for them. But it was the one they got. And it was honest. I kept showing up to the Thursday group. Some men left when their feet were steady again. New men came in with haunted eyes and heavy questions. We drank bad coffee and told the truth in short sentences. Hope is not a mood. It is a discipline. One night, at a four-way stop, everyone waved everyone else through. For a moment, no one moved. Then we all went at once. And somehow nobody hit anyone. That is what forgiveness feels like when it finally arrives. People ask me now if I am happy. I tell them the truth. Happiness is a visitor. I give it a clean room and a spare key. What I live with every day is steadiness. Steadiness helps me see happiness when it knocks. Steadiness is what allows me to sit at the dinner table. I listen to my daughters talk about their day and stay present, instead of drifting off in my mind to solve a problem that doesn't need me tonight. My failed marriage did not make me a success. My response to it did. And that response started small. One walk around the block. One honest conversation. One moment of choosing dignity over drama. Those small choices were like pennies in a jar that turned into a fund for a better life. Do you remember what I said at the start? Motivation for success can start with the smallest thing. For me, it started with the wreckage of a marriage and a pink slip on the same day. That was the hardest day of my life. And it turned out to be the day my life started over. I did not see it at the time. But now I can trace everything good in my present back to that storm. I live differently now. I measure my success by how well I listen. Not by how loud I speak. I measure my wealth by how often my children choose to come over, even when it is not my weekend. I measure my peace by the mornings I do not dread, and the nights I do not rehearse arguments that never happened. Sundays are my favorite now. I fire up the grill in the backyard of the townhouse that used to feel too small. The girls slice vegetables while I turn the meat. Neighbors drift over with their kids and their folding chairs. We tell stories. We spill lemonade. We argue about baseball scores and laugh about who cheats at board games. Life is not perfect. The mortgage is still due. The car still breaks down. But it is full. Full is better than perfect. Sometimes Linda stops by to drop off something for the girls. We talk on the porch for a few minutes. No edge. No courtrooms between us. Just two people who once shared a life and still sharing respect. That is its own kind of victory. If you are over 45 and you think you have missed your chance, let me say this as clearly as I can. Your drive can start here. From the smallest thing, even from the ashes of what just broke. Take one honest step today and another tomorrow. Call the person you need to call. Apologize if you can. Ask for help if you need it. Forgive yourself if that is what keeps you stuck. No one pays for your admission to life. You pay it yourself with the choices you make after the worst day of your life. And one day, you will look back and realize those choices built a road. Not a road back to who you were, but a road forward to who you were supposed to be all along. So tonight, before you go to bed, to write down one small thing you can do tomorrow that will make life a little lighter. Then do it. Just keep doing it day after day. Because that is how you rebuild. That is how you succeed.